The call comes in at 2:13 in the morning. You answer it. One sentence. That's all they say. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., bring your laptop. You don't recognize the number, but you already know you're going to show up. You're 22 years old, fresh out of the Information Engineering University, top of your class. Your thesis was on zero-day exploit development. Your professor never praised you publicly, but he put your name in a report you'll never get to read. That report ended up on a desk. That desk is inside a building with no address. The next morning, you're sitting in a white room. There's a computer on the table, a problem on the screen. No instructions, no time limit, no rubric. You start working. 3 hours later, someone walks in, closes the laptop, and says you passed. You ask, passed what? Nobody answers. That's how you walk through this door. Not because you applied, because they chose you. The difference between those two things, you'll spend years figuring out why it matters. You're assigned to a training unit operating under a cover designation. Nobody tells you what department this is. What you know is, you arrive at 8, you wear civilian clothes, you leave your personal phone at home, and you don't tell anyone, not even your parents, where you work. Your salary is 6,800 yuan a month. Your job is to write code, test vulnerabilities, and file reports. Who gets the reports? You don't know. But you notice quickly, nobody here asks that question. Not asking. That's the first rule, the most important one. 6 months in, your assignment changes. You're no longer running test environments. Now, you're conducting reconnaissance on real targets, real companies, real government networks. Your supervisor goes by team lead. You never learn his actual name. Nay. Level 2. 6 months in, your assignment changes. You're no longer running test environments. Now you're conducting reconnaissance on real targets, real companies, real government networks. Your supervisor goes by team lead. You never learn his actual name. He sends you an IP range, a time window, and 3 words, figure it out. 11 days later, you've mapped the target network completely. Which ports are open, which services are running, which accounts have admin access, which machines stay online past midnight. You haven't broken into anything. You've just looked. But you know, you've crossed something. You used to think reconnaissance and attack were 2 separate things. Now you understand. Reconnaissance is the first move in the attack. You can't pretend this is just research. So you pretend anyway. You tell yourself you're just doing your job. You tell yourself the target must have done something to deserve this kind of attention. You don't need to know why. You just need to do your part. This is the first time you reason with yourself. It won't be the last. Your salary goes up to 12,000 yuan a month. You start sorting your colleagues into 2 categories, real technical talent and execution tools. And you start to understand that in this system, technical skill gets you in the room, but loyalty is the actual currency. Level 3, the infiltrator. The first time you actually get inside a system, it's a Wednesday afternoon. The target is an internal document server at an American defense contractor. You exploit a backdoor that's been sitting dormant for 3 years, completely undetected. You didn't build it, but you maintain it. You make sure it stays quiet, stays alive, keeps pulling data. When the first batch of files comes through, you open one. It's a technical specification document for a drone sensor system. Sitting dormant for 3 years, completely undetected. You didn't build it, but you maintain it. You make sure it stays quiet, stays alive, keeps pulling data. When the first batch of files comes through, you open one. It's a technical specification document for a drone sensor system. You read the first page, then you close it. You tell yourself you don't need to know what these files are used for. That's not your role. That logic, you'll reach for it a lot over the coming years. Over 3 months, the backdoor you're maintaining pulls back over 4 terabytes of data. You never find out where it goes, who analyzes it, or what it's used for. What you know is that your performance review says, outstanding. For the first time, you get invited into an internal meeting, not a regular weekly briefing, a small room, 12 people, no agenda, no notes, no cameras. Someone says one thing that stays with you. Real warfare isn't when the enemy knows you were there, it's when they never find out. You nod, At the time, you think it's just strategy talk. Level 4. You're 26, 4 years in. You don't maintain back doors anymore. You design operations. Your first independent operation has the codename Stillwater. The target is the SCADA system of a European power grid company. The mission isn't destruction, it's implantation. You're placing a dormant program deep inside their infrastructure, waiting for an activation command. 3 weeks. That's how long it takes you to complete the penetration. After the implant confirms successful, you write a 2-page report and hand it to your team lead. Nobody tells you whether that program will ever be activated. Nobody tells you when. Nobody tells you what happens if it is. You don't ask. This time, you don't even bother constructing a reason. You just do it. You write a 2-page report and hand it to your team lead. Nobody tells you whether that program will ever be activated. Nobody tells you when. Nobody tells you what happens if it is. You don't ask. This time, you don't even bother constructing a reason. You just do it. That shift matters more than anything else that happens at this level. At level 3, you needed to justify things to yourself. At level 4, you don't need to anymore. Your salary is now 38,000 yuan a month, plus irregular project bonuses. The bonuses come in cash, plain brown envelopes. You open a first reserve, money that exists outside the banking system. You buy an apartment, you put it in your uncle's name. You're learning how to make your own existence harder to trace. You're running a 6-person unit now. Nobody in the group knows anyone else's real name. You communicate through code names, through encrypted channels, on an internal system fully air-gapped from the outside world. You're no longer responsible for individual operations. You're responsible for maintaining a sustained attack infrastructure. Your unit manages over 300 compromised servers across 17 countries. These nodes serve as relay points, staging areas, storage, and cover, tools for masking where attacks actually originate. One day during a routine audit, you notice one of those nodes is being used to distribute ransomware. The target isn't a military system. It's a hospital. You submit a query through the internal system, carefully worded, "Does node E047 traffic require cleanup?" The response is 3 words, "Continue operations." You continue operations. You never raise the question again. You understand now, in this system, knowing too much and asking too much are equally dangerous. TEM carefully worded, "Does node E47 traffic require cleanup?" The response is 3 words, "Continue operations." You continue operations. You never raise the question again. You understand now, in this system, knowing too much and asking too much are equally dangerous. Your presence, even inside the organization, starts to go quiet. The world outside gets smaller. You haven't been to your parents' place since Chinese New Year, 2 years ago. You call less than you used to, not because you're busy, because you no longer know what there is to say when someone picks up. Are you still you? You don't take the time to answer that. Level 6. You're 31. Inside the organization's internal documents, you have a code name now. Shadow 9. Nobody uses your real name. Even you barely think of it anymore. Your work is no longer execution. You design operational frameworks. How an operation gets staged, who handles which phase, how risk gets compartmentalized, how to sever one segment without exposing the overall structure if something goes wrong. The frameworks you design get executed by units you've never met and who've never met you. You are a faceless architect. At one point, the fallout from an operation makes international news, a major power grid failure in an unnamed country. The casualty numbers aren't reported publicly, but you see them in an internal brief. You sit there, you look at the number, maybe 3 seconds. Then you turn the page. You don't tell yourself anything. That's what it looks like. Not that you became a bad person, it's that you adapted. Adapting and becoming bad, from the inside, they feel exactly the same. The difference is only in how you explain it to yourself. You chose the word adapted. You don't tell yourself anything. That's what it looks like. Not that you became a bad person, it's that you adapted. Adapting and becoming bad, from the inside, they feel exactly the same. The difference is only in how you explain it to yourself. You chose the word adapted. Your total annual income is well over 2 million yuan, spread across 7 separate channels. Your direct superior, you've met him twice, once in an underground parking garage, once in a restaurant with no windows. He never takes notes. Neither do you. Level 7, the ghost. You're 36. Inside this system, you are already a legend. Not because people talk about you, because they don't. New recruits don't know you exist. Mid-level operators know your code name, nothing else. Only a small handful of people know where you are at any given time. You have no fixed office. Every 3 to 6 months, you relocate. You have 4 properties, none of them in your name. Your operations now extend beyond the jurisdiction of any single department. You answer to a committee with no official name. You've met 2 of its members. They both wear civilian clothes. Neither uses a title. Your power has no clear boundary, but neither does your freedom. Those 2 things are the same thing. Every contact in your phone is a fake name. Sometimes you sit up in bed in the middle of the night. Not from a nightmare, from a very specific kind of calm. A calm so complete it unsettles you. What are you supposed to feel? You don't know. You used to ask that question. You don't ask anymore. Not because you found the answer, because you stopped needing one. That's the marker of level 7. You no longer report your inner life to anyone, including yourself. Level 8, the architect of Architecture 41. That's what absolute power looks like. Not everyone watching you. Nobody able to see you at all. You take a sip of tea that went cold an hour ago. You look at the screens. You think about the first morning, sitting in that white room, facing a problem with no instructions. You think about who you were at 22. He thought this was about technical skill. He thought the reward, in the end, would be recognition. He didn't know the real cost of all of it was this. One day, you would find yourself sitting alone in one of the deepest corridors of power in the world, unable to remember the last time you laughed and actually meant it. You set the cup back down. You turn to the third screen. You get back to work. Somewhere tonight, a 22-year-old is staring at an unknown number on his phone. 2:13 in the morning. He hesitates for 3 seconds. Then he answers. He thinks this is an opportunity. He thinks he's ready. He thinks he understands how this game works. He doesn't know that the rules were never meant to be understood. They were meant to change you. By the time he figures that out, he'll already be someone else. But he won't call that person someone else. He'll call that person himself.